Joining us tonight, Jim Jordan, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, member of the House Judiciary Committee, and the Freedom Caucus. And Congressman, good to
be with you.
Great to have you with us.
Good to see you.
Quite an exchange between you and Gerald Nadler today.
We've had several of those in the past several months.
I'd just like to share with the audience this brief part of the exchange to give you some flavor for the tensions in that committee room.
When will the committee get a chance to question Mr. Horowitz on his report that was released 2 weeks ago?
I'm not sure which report you're referring to, but...
I'm referring to the scathing report on the former FBI Director, James Comey.
The Wray report. The answer is I don't know.
Do you anticipate us having an opportunity to question?
I don't know that either.
You don't know?
I don't know. We haven't discussed that.
He doesn't know, Congressman. It seems like the chairman doesn't know a lot about the issues that are most important to the American people and what the American public wants to know.
He's got a resolution in the committee tomorrow that will be voted on that will change procedures so that they can move closer to an impeachment inquiry. He knows about that, but he doesn't know about a report written by the Inspector General that is scathing. I mean, you can lay this whole 3-year saga that the country has lived through at the feet of Jim Comey. Jim Comey is the guy who opened the investigation on this crazy Trump-Russia collusion issue in July of 2016. Jim Comey is the guy who put Peter Strzok in charge, allowed him to run the same guy who ran the Clinton investigation. Jim Comey's the guy who allowed the dossier to be used to go to a secret court to get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. Jim Comey's the guy who leaked information through his buddy to the New York Times so we get a special counsel. And most importantly, in Mr. Horowitz's report, page 17, Jim Comey's the guy who goes to Trump Tower when it's President-elect Trump, January 6th, and tells the president information about the unverified dossier, Jim Comey's words, all the while he's trying to trap the president. And he's telling the president at that exact same time that he's not under investigation. This from the head of the FBI. I'd like to kind of question Mr. Comey again, frankly. But it seems that to me, at a minimum, we need to have Mr. Horowitz in front of us at some point in the future. Maybe we can wait till after a second report. But I want Mr. Horowitz to be in there, answer some questions. And I think more importantly, the American people want that.
I don't think there's any doubt, any question about it. What I'm curious about is, what are the Republicans on that committee going to do? Because Nadler has made it very clear. I mean, this may, in various points, look like a radical Dem clown car instead of a House Judiciary Committee hearing. But the fact is that this is an attempt to assail the President of the United States, and it's absolutely an outrage.
Yeah, and the best defense we have is the truth. And we need to make sure we present that in a clear and articulate way as we can. But you're exactly right. Think about this. The president is falsely accused of colluding with Russia. We know that. We know it was a false accusation. Jim Comey spends 10 months on it, the same Jim Comey who I just talked about. But he spends 10 months on it, and when we deposed him, guess what he told us? We didn't have anything that showed any type of coordination or collusion. Then Bob Mueller, who Jim Comey got to be special counsel, Bob Mueller investigates it for 22 months. They have nothing. And what do the Democrats want to do? Oh, let's keep investigating. Well, maybe a better thing to do would be to go back and look how the whole darn false accusation happened. And that's what I want to try to get out so the American people can find out the truth about that. That's how we fight back on this. We go to, how did this whole thing start in the first place?
If that's a further function of the Judiciary Committee, it doesn't respond, though, to the attack on the President of the United States. As you say, truth is on your side. It's also on the side of the president. He has gone through an almost 1-year FBI investigation on Russian collusion, a special counsel investigation of almost 2.5 years. And in each instance, they resulted in nothing.
Nothing.
So truth is on his side. It should be closure. And instead, what we have is a House committee that is out of control. Yeah, what do you do about it?
Right. You got to keep fighting back. You got to keep presenting the truth. And you also point to the fact that the Attorney General of the United States is doing an investigation that he has put John Durham in charge of, where they are going to get to the bottom of this and find out how this whole crazy ordeal that our country has lived through for 3 years, lived through because of the actions of Jim Comey. He's going to get to the bottom of that. And I put a lot of weight in that. Mr. Horowitz has got another report coming. Mr. Durham and Mr. Barr's investigation will conclude at some point. That's when we can get to the bottom of all this. There's also, at some point, the Attorney General is going to declassify certain documents that we think are important for the truth to get out to the American people. So we look forward to that day as well.
Congressman Jim Jordan, as always, Great,
you, Lou.
great to have your representation in Congress.
Thank you.
And great to have you here on the broadcast.
Good to be with
Thanks.
you.